Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly I Choose the Literary Lounge book podcast. I'm Ethan Drong, and I'm with our special guest, Justin Kai, to whom I will be asking different questions about your independent reading book. I would like to quickly thank our sponsor, Diadem, where you swing for the fences and aim for the lines. New racket models coming soon. Let us turn our attention to the books. Justin, why don't you give us a brief introduction to your book?
Sure. My independent reading book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. This book follows the life of a young girl named Francie Nolan who grew up in the slums of Brooklyn below the poverty line during the early 20th century. Through Francie's eyes, we witness the harsh conditions and struggles of an impoverished family, including her hardworking mother, Katie, and her alcoholic father, Johnny. As the novel progresses, we see themes of poverty, resilience, and hope as Francie navigates the challenges of her environment while hoping to become a writer when she grows up. Through Francie's challenging living in Brooklyn, the novel captures the universal experience of individuals trying to understand the world and striving for a prosperous future as they grow up.
Great. What is something that you have learned from this book?
One fascinating idea I learned is just how difficult some people's lives can be when they are just simply trying to make a living. Early in the novel, Francie and her brother, Dylan, at just 11 years old, gather scraps, pieces of metal, and plastic off the streets of Brooklyn to sell to a junk dealer, earning only a few pennies each time. Later, Francie has to set aside her education to go work at a brush factory, enduring long hours and harsh conditions for just minimum wage, all just trying to put food on the table. These challenges in the novel taught me the perseverance people are required to have in order to survive while living below the poverty line.
Of course, so many people struggle to make a living, especially in areas such as Brooklyn. Is there a thematic thesis expressed in this book?
Definitely. One thematic thesis statement I can say is when individuals encounter challenging circumstances, the resilience of the individual who finds hope and determination even in the most challenging situations allow them to persevere above any obstacle and achieve their dreams. The individual's mindset and dedication enable them to take control of their future amidst life challenges.
I can see the deep meaning that your book is trying to convey. What is a part of your book that you enjoy?
One scene that I found interesting is when Francie climbs onto a roof and finds enjoyment in one of her favorite hobbies, reading. I enjoy this scene because of how Francie, despite the challenges in her life, is still able to create an oasis of happiness with the book she borrows from the library each week. This embodies Francie's resourcefulness and ability to find joy in the smallest of things. This scene captures Francie's character through the book, her appreciation for the smallest things in life, and her determination in trying to seek happiness amidst challenging circumstances. This scene reminds me of how when life starts to become difficult, it's important to take a step back and appreciate the smaller things that life has to offer that truly make life so beautiful.
That is very intriguing. Where do you think that the book had some shortcomings?
One shortcoming I found is that the book's pacing can be slow at times, especially in the middle scenes, since it spends a considerable amount of time just explaining things like the preparation of meals or cleaning routines. The middle scenes also include detailed yet lengthy descriptions of secondary characters like Aunt Sissy. While these add to the novel's depth and realism, they can make the narrative feel repetitive and stagnant, as the plot is frequently interrupted, which makes the book feel repetitive and slow.
This is the most important question so far. Would you recommend the viewers to read the book that you choose?
Definitely, I would highly recommend everyone read this book because of how the novel is able to provide an interesting plot, yet also has a valuable lesson about how difficult it is for people to work in order to put food on the table. The book effectively captures what Brooklyn was like in the 20th century through the eyes of Francie Nolan and other characters to create an enriched theme. It includes themes of resilience, perseverance, and determination in pursuing one's dreams through difficult circumstances like Francie Nolan's situation. Through Fancy Nolan's journey growing up in Brooklyn, we can learn about the harsh realities of some people endure just to put food on the table. Yet the novel also conveys the idea of how children coming to age and figuring out what they are passionate about, like Fancy Nolan wanting to become a writer when she grows up. I would highly encourage everyone to read this book because of the immersive detail and the deeper meaning in the novel that is effectively conveyed to the reader through the eyes of Fancy Nolan.
To wrap things up, do you have any more details or thoughts about your book?
One thing I want to share is the title, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It could symbolize hope, resilience, and the potential for growth even in challenging circumstances. In the book, it describes Brooklyn with noisy streets, bustling markets, and a dense population with unsanitary conditions and disease in the impoverished neighborhoods. However, the tree growing represents the perseverance of life and the possibility of success despite adversities, such as the city of Brooklyn. This title symbolizes Fancy's hope and ambitions in trying to accomplish her dreams while navigating the challenges of poverty.
Thank you for the opportunities to learn so much about your book.
Welcome back. I am your new host, Justin, and our new guest speaker is going to be Ethan. We are very glad to have you on our podcast, Ethan. Can you give the viewers a brief overview of what your book is about?
Certainly. My book, The Alice Network by Kate Quinn, is about a 19-year-old girl, Charlie, who travels from America to Paris with her mother for an operation. She runs away and tries to find out what happened to her cousin, who mysteriously disappeared during World War II. Charlie travels with an ex-spy, Eve, along with a veteran named Finn. Along the journey, Charlie finds her identity and begins to focus on her own life rather than living to impress her parents.
That sounds like a really interesting book that I would be interested in reading later on. What have you learned from the book?
While reading my book, I learned how perseverance can lead to finding something that you don't necessarily desire. Even though Charlie contacted different people and found out about her cousin, Rose, who also ran away from her parents. She also finds out that Rose died during a massacre by the SS during World War II. However, the opposite can also be true. After Eve learns that she did not betray her fellow spies, which she was led to believe, which resulted in the spies' deaths, she quits drinking and tries to live a better life.
That is a really interesting idea that the book communicates to the readers. Next, can you tell me a thematic thesis statement that the book conveys?
When individuals betray others, people often develop bitterness towards others and towards the world. During World War I, René Bordelin, a collaborator with the enemy, leaves Eve to believe that she betrayed her fellow spies. Based on this belief, she is still bitter even 30 years after her confrontation with René during the World War I. Finn Kilgore, a war veteran, is bitter after seeing Jews in concentration camps during World War II. He is sensitive about the mention of the Holocaust and starts a fight whenever people joke around about the topic.
Great. Another question I have is, what are some parts of the book that you liked?
One part of the book I enjoyed is how the author establishes different seeds very well. During the epilogue, Charlie, her husband, and Eve settle down in France after the confrontation with René, in which René dies. During action scenes, subtle descriptions of the environment can establish a fast-paced setting.
As you keep sharing all these fascinating details of your book, my understanding of your book increases even more. However, are there any shortcomings in your book that you think can be improved upon?
Yes, there are some parts of the book that I think the author should ameliorate. After reading the book, some of the language used feels very repetitive. The author uses a few words at least 15 times throughout the book. This makes the book sound boring at times and have many redundancies that can be easily eliminated by using synonyms.
Now, to my favorite part about this podcast, would you recommend other people to read this book?
Yes, I would recommend other people to reading this book. While some parts of the book can be improved, Quinn generally sets the scene very well, especially when strong emotions are involved. When Eve is drunk, her attitude is irrational and threatens to shoot Finn, with a luger. Quinn establishes a dark and emotional setting here. Additionally, the use of different timelines makes the book interesting as the reader experiences all the perspectives of the characters.
To wrap things up on this podcast, do you have any last thoughts or ideas you would like to share about the book?
Sure, one final thought I wanted to share with you is how some of the characters in the Alex Network were real spies during World War One. Even though the other protagonists are fictional, Louis de Bottini served and died in a way that the author illustrates in the book. Although Eve is a fictional character, she is based on Marguerite de Francois, who helps Louis swallow a coded message by distracting the guards that guarded the two in their interrogation cell. Although Marguerite could have simply been an innocent bystander, it is possible that her and Louis could have actually been secretly uh, arranged to hide the message.
Thank you very much, Ethan, for making a special appearance on this podcast. Make sure you continue to watch our next episode of the I Choose the Literary Lounge book podcast. And always remember to stay curious in the literature world.